President Trump has to say that he took action against Russia, which actually he has not taken. If you want to ask India not to take oil from Russia, you have to do the same to China. You have to put sanctions on China. You have to put sanctions on Europe. Why aren't you doing that? India is not the one which is going to take it lying down. It is just keeping quiet, waiting and watching the game. India is not the country which can you can decide to take down, in days or months or in years. It's a 5,000-year-old civilization. The US administration right now, and even the media, that is some parts of the media, do not really understand the dynamics of the India-China relationship. India-China relationship is mutually exclusive to the India-US relationship. The two do not intersect. They see India either pro-China, pro-US, pro-Russia. India is only pro-India.
Hello and welcome. You're watching the Hindustan Times. I'm Abhishek Singh. Prime Minister Modi is back from China. His visit was closely observed by analysts in not just India, but also in the West, with Trump advisor Navarro wondering aloud why Prime Minister Modi is cozying up to Putin and Xi. Trump himself is busy fielding questions from the press, asking him why Russia hasn't been punished. To talk about what's happening in the world of geopolitics and the implications for India, I'm joined by my senior colleague, Shishir Gupta, Executive Editor, Hindustan Times. Namaskar, sir. So, sir, Trump is being asked, questions, and there are a bunch of issues that we have to discuss in this episode of Point Blank, but let's start with the latest. And the latest is that Trump was asked by a journalist why Russia hasn't been punished yet, and his response was, well, he put tariffs on India, and that was indirectly, his punishment for Russia. Your thoughts on that?
See, if you look at this question and answer and how India interprets it, it goes like this. President Trump has to say that he took action against Russia, which actually he has not taken.
Right.
But President Trump being President Trump, he has to answer every question. He could have sidestepped the question, but he did not. And he goes straight for the question. He cannot say that he cannot take action against Russia. Okay? That's point two. So what is the easiest option left in this is blame it on somebody else. And in this case, the blame lies on India. Now, as far as India is concerned, India is not really bothered at this question or this answer. They look at this relationship right now, which is in a very transactional phase. Everything is a transaction, and when there is a transaction, there is a deal, there is negotiations and everything, then you don't have to take everything very seriously. So President Trump is saying one thing, right? He is blaming India virtually for everything, for not taking action on Russia. He has not taken action on China, but he thinks the most vulnerable person is India. So that's why he is putting our pressure on India to try and get a trade deal. That's where it is, fundamentally where it lies. India is not the one which is going to take it lying down. It is just keeping quiet, waiting and watching the game. Let me tell you, right now, it's in a very delicate phase. The negotiations are not there, but the bombs are being thrown from Washington. India is not responding to that. But let me be very clear on this, that, India is not the country which can you can decide to take down, in days or months or in years. It's a 5,000-year-old civilization, and it has survived a lot. So, as far as India is concerned, they are waiting for the right opportunity. When it comes, when President Trump sees light of the day in this particular thing, when his advisors who keep on casting aspersions on India and everything, they understand what it really means. And when they start listening to their own media, which is now saying that by doing all this, you actually destroyed a relationship which was carefully cultivated over the past 25 years. Now, whether there's a Democratic media or a Republican media, everybody is saying the same language. So it is for President Trump to take a call, understand what it is all about, India is simply watching the show.
And what a silly thing, to you're fighting with Russia, you're confronting Russia, you're meeting with Putin at the same time, and then as far as the biggest importer of oil from Russia is concerned, which is of course China, you haven't taken any serious action. And what I move on to now is, of course, what we also talked about in the last episode of Point Blank, and that was, of course, Prime Minister Modi's visit to China for the SCO meet. And Prime Minister was there, and the optics were very carefully observed in the US as well, and all sorts of statements have started coming out. People are wondering why Prime Minister Modi is cozying up to Putin and President Xi. Question there, sir, is in your opinion, how should the US see this? Should the US see this as something which is essentially or inherently anti-US, anti-West, or this is just, countries, independent, sovereign countries exploring their options?
See, unfortunately, the US administration right now, and even the media, that is some parts of the media, do not really understand the dynamics of the India-China relationship or the India-Russia relationship. Unfortunate, but they still don't get it. Now, many people from US called me up to say that, why isn't Prime Minister Modi attending the military parade, right? Now, they also say that, India is getting cozying up to China, right? Now, what they don't understand is how India looks at China. India-China relationship is mutually exclusive to the India-US relationship. The two do not intersect. India has some serious concerns with China over multiple issues, not one but multiple issues. Okay, and it has been there since 1950s, and it has been constantly going up and down. So there is a need to stabilize that relationship so that the two sides can behave normally as neighbors. That is the sum total of what it was all about.
Right.
But for all vested interest and for all that it is, Washington sees it as if India is sitting in the lap of China, which is not the case. Unfortunately for US, they see India either pro-China, pro-US, pro-Russia. India is only pro-India. That's what I've been trying to say time and again. Now, the whole issue in this is they need to normalize the relationship. The two leaders have decided to normalize the relationship, and they will continue to do so. But the concerns are still there, and the concerns will remain, right? But the problem over here is that you can't take action against Russia. You promise you will take action against Russia after 15 days. You can't even touch China. So what is the easiest option left? You look at India and you start putting pressure on India, thinking that as if India will buckle down, which is not really the case. So that is where the whole problem lies. I mean, you do not understand. Half your life you looked at India through the eyes of United Kingdom, which thought it was the residuary power in this region.
Right.
The other part is you do not understand how Indian mindset is. I mean, we've been around for 5,000 years and you've been around for 300 years. So let's be clear on that. So it has nothing to do, we are not sort of, simply joining hands with China. And let me tell you something very clearly. There was a military parade which China held on September 3rd, right? More than 20 world leaders attended that.
Exactly, sir. So
hold on. More than 20 world leaders attended that. Look at the location of the countries from where the leaders came from. Look at the location of the country. Let me give you an example. The Malaysian, the Indonesian, the Vietnamese, the Cambodian, the Myanmar, and US crypto friend, Pakistan was there. Look at how the entire thing works out. Where does your Quad strategy go? Indonesia is at the center of the Indo-Pacific. So is Malaysia. Malaysia is sitting on Malacca Straits. Indonesia, Malaysia. He's got everybody over there. So rather than looking at him, you start looking at me. Because you think that I'm actually going to fold down. I am not folding. But look at what it is doing to you. That is for you to understand. I mean, Maldives was there, Nepal was there. So look at the people who came over there. So what essentially what you see is China's flanked itself perfectly with a buffer. Here is Iran, then you have Belarus, then you have Azerbaijan, Armenia, then you're coming into all the Southeast Asian countries. You think you can protect Taiwan? You cannot. So this is what the broad picture is. But unfortunately, you don't want to recognize the picture. You are just looking at, how to put India down and try and tell the world, listen, I did a great thing. But look at what is happening over there. I mean, the missiles he displayed, the drones he displayed, the aircraft systems he displayed, the unmanned combat systems that he displayed. You deal with him first. I mean, you've been talking about Asian pivot for the past 15 years. What happened? So we are keeping quiet. We are just looking at this as basically a kabuki show kind of a thing. A kabuki drama the Japanese do, where everything is sort of exemplified and done that. But the answer, you have to come out with an answer and then see the Indian response. And that's what it is.
Right. And a little more, let's talk about the optics of this. China, of course, is consolidating. It is talking to all of the Southeast Asian nations. They were all there, attended the military parade. And on the other hand, what Trump has done since he has come into the White House again, he's been distancing himself from friends and foes alike. Pretty much the US at this point in time is isolated because the friends of yesterday are not friends anymore because they're looking at US with suspicion, whether it's France, Germany, UK, and of course countries like India as well. So Trump's strategy of a hegemon is clearly seems to be failing.
See, President Donald Trump, to be fair, this is his way of making America great again, right? Whether you can call it a selfish attitude, you can call it a typical American attitude, which is sort of, governed by, where the money is. But what is happening over here is that this is definitely not working. I mean, it's all very fine with what you're doing with Europe, but here is an ally, a democratic power, who was with you, right? Was with you does not mean that you are an ally of the person. I mean, there were absolute convergence of multiple issues. You could talk about everything. But you decided to sort of forsake the ally for some limited gains. So it is for you to decide again as to what you really want to do about it. I mean, you couldn't start the Ukraine war, you couldn't stop the Gaza war, but you want to take credit of the Indo-Pak war.
Yeah.
So how good is that? And the world is watching. What is more interesting is that even unfortunate actually, that even his own advisors are not being able to convince him that as to what needs to be done. That's where the problem lies.
Yeah.
And so what they do is every day they start, come with gun blazing and try and shoot India. You cannot do it that way, right? And to say that, listen, if you don't stop your relationship with Russia, I'll do this to you. If you don't stop relationship, this doesn't work with India like that.
Yeah.
India has had ties with Russia, which is now for more than 75 years. And the two have stood together through thick and thin. Right? And you must remember one thing. Look at the optics where, the two leaders sit in a car that becomes a Faraday's cage.
Yeah. You're talking about President Putin and Prime
Minister Modi. Yeah. And they have, President Putin has said that he briefed Prime Minister Modi on the Alaska summit. So we are very much in the game. But we are not doing press conferences every day. We are not doing tweets every day. We are not doing social media every day. We are just waiting and watching as to what can be done to restore the relationship. I am saying that it is not an adversarial relationship. It is a relationship where you need convergence, because that is good for the countries, the two countries, and the world too.
And also it's common sense. I mean, for instance, in best case scenario, let's say India stops importing all the Russian oil, right? Hypothetically speaking, of course, India is not going to do it, hasn't done it, hasn't even talked about it, isn't even thinking about it. But let's say India does it. What's going to happen? Will China not import more? Will Russia not be able to find more buyers across the world? How's that going to punish Russia or do anything else for that matter for President Trump or his administration?
You see, the issue over here is India is a sovereign country.
Yeah.
India doesn't have to look at somebody else to take a decision as to what is to be done about it.
Right.
Right. Now, if you want to ask India not to take oil from Russia, you have to do the same to China. You have to put sanctions on China. You have to put sanctions on Europe. Why aren't you doing that? And what about you yourself?
Yeah.
You yourself are doing a side deal on the entire thing. So you cannot be discriminatory in this. I mean, this is something which has become, it's more of an ego issue now. It is something that, listen, how dare you say that to me? So this is not how the geopolitics works. And this has been happening. And unfortunately, it is not good for either US or India. Because the person who's laughing to the bank is China.
Right. And so let's talk about one more issue, and this would have been relevant in a few weeks from now, and that is because Quad Summit is of course scheduled to be held in India, and President Trump was expected to visit India for the meeting. So let's talk about what is the likelihood of Donald Trump coming to India, and of course the future of Quad in the light of all that has happened in the last two and a half months.
See, the Quad Summit was supposed to be held at the end of the year. Let me tell you, the dates have not been set up.
Right.
Because it has to be mutually convenient dates. But to say that we have given up on Quad Summit, that's incorrect. The decision is still in abeyance. It all depends how the entire thing unfolds. It all depends how we can actually, bring the two sides together, that is India, US. Australia and Japan are already there. Prime Minister just went to Japan.
Yeah.
Australia has already been talking about India, right? So to say that Quad Summit has been given up, no, it has not been given up. Let me tell you that very clearly. It has not been given up. But the only thing is, the dates will be decided at mutual convenience. And even when we thought about the summit, we were thinking it towards the end of the year, not in September.
Okay. So
that is the first point. See, what is happening is that trade deal is not the be all or end all of everything. I mean, if tomorrow the two sides sit together and do a deal straight away, then everything becomes hunky-dory again. So you have to wait and watch. How does the trade deal go through? Okay, there will be movements in that. And then how does President Trump take this entire thing, right? Okay. President Trump time and again also says that Modi is a great guy, Modi is this, he's a close friend of mine, everything.
You never know, he can just flip again.
No, the point is we neither take this side nor that side.
Right.
We are just looking at what is in hand, what is on the table, rather than what is being talked about. So let's see where it goes from there. But to say that the Quad Summit is a over chapter, or Quad as an institution is over, that's incorrect. Because the fundamental point in all this is Quad is all about allowing freedom of navigation. That is one of the fundamental principles of Quad. Then it is about human disaster relief. That's the part 2. Third part is to ensure that global shipping goes on. All these issues are still on the table and they are very hot, right? Now, if you look at how the Chinese PLA Navy have been behaving and excising near Taiwan in the Japan Straits, right? You will understand the importance and salience of Quad, which is not lost out even on the Americans. Today, Russia and China are doing joint exercises in the Sea of Japan, right? Philippines is facing pressure from China, right? Now, America alone cannot handle them. Europe has nothing in this, right? So you'll have to look at India, which is one of the biggest naval power in the region. So, if better sense prevails, then rather than putting everything in one basket of a trade deal, you would start diversifying it into other issues which are of strategic convergence. Now, not to say that they're only looking at a trade deal, because recently what has happened is that an Indian military delegation has gone for Alaska for exercises. Yeah. So A whole lot of things are also happening. It's not that, everything is closed down because of a trade deal. All this has injected an element of unpleasantness in the relationship, which needs to be avoided. And that is what that President Trump should be focused upon. Remember, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has not even uttered a word. So somebody who needs to take a U-turn is President Trump.
All right. And since you mentioned trade deal, let's briefly also talk about that. And let that be my last question to you. Minister Goyal said that there could be a trade deal actually by the month of November. Do you think that's a possibility?
See, I do not know where the Commerce and Industries Minister is basing that thing all about. As far as I understand is that the trade deal is still not on the horizon. Okay. I mean, it's good to keep a positive momentum on everything. Possibly the Minister Goyal is trying to keep a positive momentum on the entire thing. But as of now, there is nothing on the horizon to convince me that there is a trade deal happening. But with President Trump, anything can happen.
Yeah, you never know. I mean, November is still kind of far away.
Yeah.
But on that note, thank you so much, sir, for taking the time and talking to us. Thank you.